I was behind schedule, for the umpteenth time. My fingers were clenched tight on the wheel as I drove through those curvy residential streets, heading toward my parents' huge Tudor house. With its 6 bedrooms, 3-car garage, there wasn't a single space where I ever felt like I fit in. Youngest marketing VP in the company's 15-year history, I mumbled under my breath, repeating what my boss had told me at my promotion party last week. Those words were supposed to be significant, but those words would be meaningless the second I entered my parents' home. I parked on the street, avoiding the driveway where my brother Tyler's Range Rover and my sister Rachel's Mercedes were parked like they owned everything. And in a way, they did. I felt like the guest here. It had always been that way. I took a final look at myself in the rearview mirror. My hair was slicked into place with a costly product, and my makeup was perfect, the protective layer that I'd spent 40 minutes putting on this morning. I adjusted my charcoal-colored blazer, which cost more than what I'd paid for my first month's rent. I took a deep breath. Then I let it out, ready to play the part. The front door swung open before I could even knock. My mother was there, and her disapproval felt intense. "It's about time, Morgan," she said, her tone stinging. "We were almost ready to begin without you." I entered the house, and that familiar anxious feeling began to well up inside me. Dad came out from the living room, already holding a scotch and a glass, even though it was still early in the day. "Someday you'll discover something that matters more than that fancy career of yours," he stated, waving his hand in a dismissive way. It wasn't a question. He was just making a pronouncement. It was as if my job, the one I had strived so hard for, was simply a passing trend. "Good to see you too, Dad," I responded, forcing a smile that seemed almost authentic. The house had the aroma of turkey and stress, a unique holiday combination. I could hear my brothers and sisters and their partners in the dining room, filled with laughter and casual chatter. They seemed to fit in perfectly. I felt like I was just visiting, the same way it always felt. I went with Mom into the dining area, where the big mahogany table reflected the glow of the chandelier. The crystal glasses sparkled. The fancy china was on display. Each place setting had a name card with Mom's flawless handwriting. I looked around for my name but couldn't spot it. "Morgan," Mom said, pointing toward the corner of the room where a folding card table had been arranged. Plastic cups, paper plates decorated with cartoon turkeys. 3 of my nieces and nephews were already sitting there, the eldest not older than 10. "Go sit at the kids' table." I stopped, certain I'd misunderstood. I was 28. I had an office in the corner. I supervised a team of 12 people. "You've got to be kidding," I murmured, my words almost swallowed by the loud chatter coming from the big table. Mom raised her eyebrows a little. "There isn't enough space at the main table. Tyler's new client is coming and Rachel's in-laws are here. You get it." I didn't get it, actually, not even a little. Tyler glanced my way from his spot at the table, the good table where the important people sit, and gave me a look that said, "Don't cause a fuss." I knew that look well. I'd seen it a million times. I held onto my designer handbag, like it was the only thing keeping me afloat, and went over to the kids' table, feeling numb. My 7-year-old niece, Zoe, looked up at me with a grape juice mustache on her face. "Are you in trouble, Auntie Morgan?" "No, honey," I replied, carefully settling onto the small folding chair. "I'm just hanging out with you all today." For the next 60 minutes or so, I sat there, drinking wine out of a plastic cup, responding to my nephew's questions about Minecraft and cleaning up messes with flimsy paper napkins. About 10 feet away, the adults, my family, were talking about politics, their investments in real estate, and Tyler's latest business deal. No one inquired about my recent promotion. Nobody even asked about my life in general. "Can I play with your phone?" my niece requested, her sticky hands already reaching for it. "Not right now, Zoe," I began, but it was too late. Her grape juice-covered fingers accidentally knocked over my cup, and the red wine spilled all over my expensive, cream-colored silk blouse. That's when it all shifted for me. Something inside me gave way, not with a bang, but in a silent, definitive way. It felt like the last strand of support wire on a bridge that was already collapsing had finally broken. I rose to my feet, my blouse stained with spilled wine, and reached for my bag. "Morgan," my sister inquired from the grown-up table, seeing me stir. "Are you all right?" I looked at my family, content in their preordained roles, in this pecking order we'd built since we were kids. They expected me to laugh it off, freshen up in the restroom, and go back to my usual spot at the kids' table. Some customs, I stated deliberately, aren't worth continuing. Then I left. No dramatic scene, no slamming of the door. Instead, just the soft click of the front door as opposed to the slam my shaky hands wanted to make. Inside the car, I put my head against the steering wheel and took a deep breath, the first one I had taken in ages. Once I was on the highway, my phone was vibrating incessantly in my purse. I paired it with the car's Bluetooth to hear the messages. "Morgan, you're acting absurd. Come back this instant." That was my mother. "Good job ruining dinner. Very grown up." Tyler had left a message. "Mom's really upset. Dad's furious. What were you even thinking?" Rachel's message came next. The humor of the situation wasn't lost on me. Being called immature by the very people who'd literally put me at the children's table. I silenced my phone and just kept driving with no true plan of where to go. I found myself in a diner on the side of the road, open all the time, with those menus that are all sticky and coffee that never runs out. It was packed with other folks just trying to get away from the holiday, people working, those just passing through, the ones who didn't have anywhere else to be. It felt like I belonged there, finally. "Having a hard holiday?" the waitress inquired, her name tag displaying Darlene. The wrinkles around her eyes implied she was used to seeing people like me on Thanksgiving. "You could definitely say that," I responded, asking for coffee and a piece of pie, even though I wasn't really craving it. A guy who seemed to be around my age looked up from his laptop a couple of booths away and gave me a nod as if he knew what I was going through. "You look like you just busted out of jail," he remarked. "And I mean that in a good way." I was actually surprised when I started to laugh. "Does it show that much?" "Not really obvious, just relatable." He closed his laptop. "Jake Harmon, another one escaping the holiday. Morgan Chen, officially a new adult rebel." We ended up chatting for what felt like forever. Jake truly listened as I told him about the kids' table, all the years of being ignored and the consistent put-downs. He didn't try to make it better or brush it aside. He simply listened. "You look different," he mentioned later on, "unlike when you first came in." "Different in what way?" "Lighter, as if you'd set something heavy down." As I sipped my third mug of Joe, I mindlessly flipped through the pictures on my phone. Old snapshots of my family from the last couple of years seemed to carry a whole new weight. There I was at Christmas, basically sliced out of the family photograph. I saw myself at my folks' anniversary celebration, relegated to the edge of the table while Tyler and Rachel sat right next to Mom and Dad. Then there was the group message concerning the family investment that I wasn't a part of because Dad felt it was over my head. It wasn't just a matter of where I sat. It was about constantly being made to feel like I didn't measure up. By 1 in the morning, I knew what I had to do. I got into the family group chat and started typing a message. I included the photo from Christmas where only part of my face was in the picture, and then I wrote, "This isn't simply about feeling left out today. It's about all these years of being treated like I wasn't as good as my siblings, not an adult, not a real member of the family. I refuse to take the leftovers of your attention and respect anymore. Don't get in touch until you're prepared to see the way you've acted and make some actual adjustments." I hit send and then completely switched my phone off. For the first time in ages, no one could bombard me with their needs and what they expected of me. The quiet felt liberating. For 3 whole days, my phone stayed powered down. Then, Sunday evening, when I switched it back on, anticipating the upcoming workweek, the notifications came pouring in, overwhelming me. So many missed calls. Group texts going through phases of fury, rejection, and eventually reluctant worry. But buried within the digital deluge was a solitary text from someone I hadn't anticipated. My 13-year-old niece, Emma. "I understand, Aunt Morgan. They make me feel unseen, too." I sat on the side of my bed, fixed on those words. Emma, Rachel's oldest, always seemed quiet and loved to read, with her head buried in a book during family get-togethers. I hadn't realized she noticed, taking in the family situation with the same understanding I'd recently discovered. I texted back, "Thanks for recognizing me, Em. It means a lot." The following day, while I was dealing with the rest of the messages, a call came in from a number I didn't know. "Morgan speaking," I said, switching into work-appropriate mode. "It's Aunt Julia." I gasped. Aunt Julia, my father's sister, had been basically banned from family events years ago after my parents vaguely referenced something they called the incident. She'd tried to reach me a few times when I was in college, but I was told not to reply. "How'd you get my number?" I inquired. "Emma," she answered, her voice light. "She's a smart girl, ingenious, really. She told me what happened at Thanksgiving." I collapsed onto my couch. I likely overreacted. "Absolutely not," Julia declared with conviction. "You're not losing it, Morgan. I've absolutely been in your shoes." Over the course of the next 60 minutes, Julia shared her perspective on the family rift. She explained how she stood up to my grandfather's unfair, male-dominated business methods, and how she was deliberately shut out of all family discussions. The whole incident turned out to be her declining to say she was sorry for simply asking for equality. "They're going to say it's all your fault," she told me. "That you're overly emotional, that you're exaggerating, that you're asterisk too much. It's simpler than them having to admit they've been mistreating you." Once the call ended, I grabbed my journal and in large, bold letters, I scrawled BOUNDARIES across the top of an empty page. Beneath that, I meticulously crafted a list of stipulations for any future contact with my relatives. 1. I will be treated as a full, equal adult, just like my brothers and sisters. 2. My professional successes will be recognized and valued. 3. I will be included, literally, at the adult table during all family get-togethers. 4. No decisions that involve the whole family will be made without getting my opinion first. 5. I don't want to hear any more of those subtle, yet nasty, comments about how I choose to live my life. Then I brought the list to my next therapy appointment. There, Dr. Winters assisted me in solidifying and strengthening my determination. "These boundaries aren't meant to be punishments," she pointed out. "They exist to safeguard you. You aren't trying to make your family suffer, you are trying to prevent them from harming you." At that point, my family was working overtime to fix the damage. Emma told me that Tyler had arranged an emergency family meeting to talk about the Morgan issue, and I was not included. "They're losing it, Aunt Morgan," Emma messaged me. "Grandma keeps insisting you'll see reason, but Grandpa is genuinely concerned." My mom had put up a cryptic Facebook post about family problems and keeping things confidential. Tyler's wife texted me carefully worded words about misunderstandings. Even my dad's golf friend made a comment to me when I ran into him at the coffee shop, proving the news of my exit had gone further than just my close relatives. It was time to involve more people. I wrote a long email to the wider family, aunts, uncles, cousins, providing specific examples and even pictures to prove the constant exclusion. I sent it to everyone, not just my closest family members. Enough of this secret shame. The replies began to come in over the next few days. Cousin Stephanie stated, "I've watched this happen for ages and never spoke up. I'm so sorry." Uncle Mark wrote, "Your grandfather did the same thing to Julia. It's unfair." Even my mother's closest friend sent a private message. "Karen always plays favorites. Be strong." For the first time, I understood I wasn't the only one who saw what was happening. I just might have been the first one brave enough to name it out loud. After 3 weeks of complete silence from my immediate family, Rachel called. "I had something to share," she said, and I could tell she wasn't feeling her best. "We'd all like to talk. Can we get together somewhere?" I hesitated, asking, "Where and when do you have in mind?" "Dad thought Marino's, Saturday at 7. Marino's was a place that wasn't connected to anything, a nice Italian restaurant in the city that didn't bring up any family baggage. I figured it would work, but with some stipulations. "I'll make the reservation," I told her, "under my name." I got there 20 minutes early on Saturday, after putting a lot of thought into what I would wear, a suit that had helped me close a big marketing deal in the past. The hostess took me to the table I picked out, a round one without a designated head or foot, so nobody would have to be in charge. I put out place cards, strategically putting myself between Dad and Tyler and my mom across from me so I could keep an eye on things. I wasn't going to be pushed to the sidelines this time. They walked in together, Mom, Dad, Tyler, and Rachel. They hesitated for a second when they saw how I'd arranged the table, looking a little perplexed as they found their seats. "Thanks for being here," I said, starting the conversation before my dad could. "I'm grateful you were all willing to come." My dad coughed. "I think we all want to be a close-knit family more than anything. This whole thing has become a little too much, and—" I gently but decisively cut in, saying to my dad, "Before we proceed, I want to lay out some boundaries. Everyone is only allowed to speak for themselves. There will be no interruptions and no statements that start with "we believe." I only want individual, truthful thoughts. The look of surprise on his face when I raised my hand, and he stopped mid-sentence, was a small triumph in itself. "All right," I said, making sure to look at each of them. "Can anyone tell me why a successful woman of 28 years old is expected to sit at the children's table at Thanksgiving?" The ensuing quiet was almost unbearable. My mother was the first to speak. "I never considered it." "Wrong. I suppose I still don't see you as completely grown up if you aren't married or have kids." I was momentarily taken aback by her unvarnished candor. "So, my high-level job doesn't make me an adult, but getting married would." She shifted uncomfortably. "When I was your age, I already had both of you." "Different times brought about different decisions," I responded calmly. My father decided to chime in. "I always believed that true success meant family, not simply a career. Tyler and Rachel went down the conventional route." "The route you valued," I clarified. Tyler shocked me by being the next to speak. "I find your accomplishments intimidating," he confessed, avoiding my gaze. "You've accomplished more at work than I have, and you did it without Dad's help. It's easier for me to keep picturing you as little Morgan rather than accept that reality." I could see that Rachel was on the verge of tears. "I understood that their behavior towards you wasn't right. However, speaking up would have put my own job in jeopardy, and I regret that." Each person revealed some unpleasant realities. My self-sufficiency undermined the family dynamics. My unique decisions seemed to criticize theirs by implication. They were intimidated by my achievements, which didn't align with their plans. By the time our main meal was served, we'd brought out years of unspoken tensions. It wasn't a pleasant process, with times when people became defensive and tried to avoid blame. However, there was something unexpected beneath it all, a delicate strand of esteem. "I want to make my future boundaries perfectly clear," I said once the server had removed our plates. I'd practiced this speech numerous times with Dr. Winters. "Firstly, I expect to be viewed as a grown-up and treated as an equal in any family situation. That involves being included at the head table, included in any family decisions, and having my career and life choices respected." My parents glanced at each other, but I kept speaking. "Secondly, I expect no more of those subtle digs about my career, my relationship, or my priorities. Should you have any concerns, I want you to address them honestly and kindly." Tyler gave a little nod. "Thirdly, I need them to acknowledge the years-long pattern. It's not just a single apology that I want, but a continuous understanding and a shift in behavior." "And if we're unable to comply with these stipulations?" my father asked, the lawyer inside him searching for the fine print. So I told them I would keep building my own limits until they could do the same. I care about everyone, but I won't keep letting myself be diminished. When the bill came, the server set it between Dad and me, where the person in control usually sits. He immediately went to grab it, but I acted first. I told him, "I'll take care of it," and I put my credit card in the folder without even looking at the bill. He started to say, "Morgan, you don't have to." "I want to pay," I said. "I can handle it." It wasn't really about the cost. It was about breaking down another expectation about who's in charge in our family. A year later, I had Thanksgiving at my loft in the city. I'd prepped for weeks, not just the food, but in my head, preparing for the family interactions that could happen. The main focus of my open-plan living room was a long table I'd had made just for this. There wasn't a separate kids' table. My young relatives were seated with the adults, with booster seats for the little ones. My mom asked, unsure, "Where should I set down the cranberry sauce?" I answered with a real smile, "Wherever there's room, Mom." My father showed up with a bottle of champagne. He said, "To celebrate your new client," mentioning the big contract I'd gotten last month. That was some good work, according to what I saw in the business journal. All night long, I observed subtle changes occurring. Tyler sought my opinion about a marketing plan for his company. Rachel confidently let me hold her infant, without a hint of anxiety. My mom started to tell Emma to sit with the other children, but then she stopped herself mid-sentence and changed direction. Aunt Julia attended as well, marking her first Thanksgiving with the family in more than 10 years. We exchanged understanding looks from across the table as she found her place again, on her own terms. When it was time to give thanks, We joined hands at my table, forming a single circle with no beginning and no end, no leader or follower. Surprisingly, my dad asked me to say the blessing. I looked around at the faces of my relatives, flawed, difficult, always changing, and experienced a complicated feeling that wasn't quite forgiveness, but it was like a sense of serenity. "I'm thankful for our progress," I stated plainly, "in all of us." Later that evening, after everyone had gone home, I was washing the dishes and I saw something that I'd overlooked before. My mom had brought place cards. Old habits are tough to break, but she had put mine at the head of the table, not as a surrender, but as a sign of respect. I put it into my journal, right beside the page where I'd written BOUNDARIES in capital letters a year ago. Next to it, I wrote two words: "At last home,